Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Pep Talk, Productive Environment Podcast. I'm Andrea Anderson here in Carolina Beach, North Carolina.
And I'm Barbara Hemphill in Raleigh, North Carolina.
And we are thrilled to have you watching today. We have a really important topic. You may be wondering, what in the world does that mean? Today's mail is tomorrow's pile. Paper and email clutter, stop the problem. So let me take this off the screen, and Barbara and I are just going to come and have a conversation with you all. Wherever you're joining us from, especially if you're on our YouTube channel, please like this channel, like this video, subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate it. And wherever you're joining in, please enter a comment. Let us know you're there, and we'll share. We may share your comment on the screen as well.
And we love, my favorite thing is questions. I love to answer questions. And Andrew will tell you that for every question you ask, I probably have a story. So if you like stories, you should ask a question.
That's right. That's right. You'll hear Barbara say, I've got a story about that. And she does. She has a great story about today's, which I haven't heard. I don't think I've heard the story that you have for today's topic. Have I, Barbara?
I don't know. It's hard to believe. I can't imagine, but.
Okay, so let's start with the first part of the title of today's talk. So today's mail is tomorrow's pile. Barbara, where did you come up with that? This is your trademarked quote. So where did you come up with that? What does it mean? And where, and maybe even when did you come up with that?
I really don't know when. It's been, it would be over 40 years ago because it was definitely in the very beginning of my career in the organizing industry. And what I observed was that I would go and help somebody, and then I would go back the next week or whenever I had an appointment, and I was doing the same thing over again. I mean, it was like I hadn't really stopped the problem. It was like endless. And having said that, the organizing industry, many of the people in that industry have made their career and make their income from not stopping the problem. I mean, they literally hire people and the person just keeps coming back and doing it. If that's what the client wants, that's fine. A lot of times it isn't what the client wants, but they don't know how to not have that be the problem. And so it was like, okay, that was when I just became aware that I have to figure out a way to stop what's happening so that I'm not just continually doing the same thing. And so it just kind of evolved over time. And it was because the other thing that would happen was when I go to the client, they always wanted to start with the old stuff first, which is what almost everybody does. It's like, oh, this stuff's so old. Partly the reason people want to start with the old is it's easier. Not always. Sometimes the old is memorabilia and that gets hard, but a lot, junk mail, for example, like if there's old piles of junk mail, that's fast. So then that makes you, oh, I'm making lots of progress. But the junk mail's coming in today's mail, which means tomorrow you have the same problem again.
Right.
So that is the reason that, and in the two boot camps we offer, one of the things we say is at the end of this boot camp, you will have stopped the problem. And we guarantee that if you do what we teach in that 5 weeks, you will stop the problem.
Yeah, yeah. And what we mean by stop the problem, that is putting in a system. It's putting in a system, which is saving you, I'll put that up, saving you space, time, energy, and money. So you need a system for things to flow. Now, when I'm saying flow, we're talking about physical paper and email.
Let's go back just a second. I just thought about something. I left out the really the core. Okay. Clutter is postponed decisions.
Yes.
I mean, that's the core. Every time there's a problem with clutter, there is a decision involved. So that's the core of everything. But then when you and I started working together, Andrea, you were the one that pointed out, rightly so, that it isn't enough to make a decision. You have to have a way to implement that decision. So that's how you stop the problem. So one of the things we say is that once you've put our system in place, Literally, you can take any piece of paper, and when we go to digital, it's the same thing, but for paper right now, you can go into your house or your office or your attic or your garage and take any piece of paper and you will know what to do with it because you have a system. I remember one of my first clients was in Washington, D.C. He was an astrophysicist. And we were cleaning out boxes of files in his garage. And at one point he was laughing and he stopped and looked at me and he said, if anybody would have ever told me that I would be laughing when I was cleaning out my papers, I would never have believed it. But he was ecstatic that we had first, before we went to the garage, we went to his office and we put in our system so that when the old papers came from the garage into his office, he knew exactly what to do with them.
Right. So, and guys, just so you understand, if they had started in the garage, right? Is that what you were saying, in the garage? If you had started in the garage and didn't have a system in the house or in his office for the new things coming in, and you're spending all your time working on the old stuff and trying to file that, new stuff is continuing to come in, and that's creating that new pile. So that's what Barbara means by today's mail is tomorrow's pile. So we put in a system, and Barbara, we teach decision making to stop the problem at the beginning. Okay, I want to say a couple things about this, and I will share with you what those three initial decisions. There are more decisions that are made after, but the three initial decisions about anything that comes into your environment is, do I want to file this for future reference? Do I need to act on this, or can I toss it? Okay, so those are the first three decisions. So if you look around your space right now, around your desk, look around and just pick up a piece of paper. Don't pick up the whole stack. Just pick up one thing and say, do I want to file this for future reference? Do I need or want to file this for future reference? Do I need to take action on this, or can I toss it? Those are the initial three decisions. Now, of course, we don't have time to get into the next steps on this podcast, but then there are places for that. Those, when you make that decision, those things need to flow to the right place, right? They need to be sent to the, to reference files. They need to be acted upon. So you need your action system, or they flow right on into the garbage can. So, and I mean, we say that's the best, but we don't ever make you or tell you should throw something away. It's your decision, but taking the time to make the decision will make the process go faster. So,
we're constantly
yeah.
reminding of what we call Hemphill's principle, though. If you don't know you have it,
Yes.
or you can't find it, is of no value to you. So it doesn't make any difference how important it is. If you can't find it or you don't know you have it, then there wasn't any reason to keep it, which is why you need to have a system, because if you have a system, you're going to be able to find it. My most extreme example of the value of a system was in 1998. I was having a meeting I have a theater in my home, and there was a meeting of some business people. They were talking about a strategy for my business. And I mentioned that I had started my business with a $7 ad in a New York City newspaper in 1978. This was in 1998, so 10 years earlier.
20.
And one of the guys said,
right?
Yeah, 20.
78 to 98 is 20 years.
20 years earlier. And one of the men at the table said, boy, it sure would be nice to see that ad. And I said, oh, just a minute. I walked upstairs to the attic, pulled open the file cabinet, pulled it out, and walked down. I mean, it might have been 3 minutes. I don't know. And people they just sat in silence because no one had ever seen anything like that happen before.
Yeah. And guys, I mean, at the time of this recording, about 1 week ago, was the 46th anniversary of Barbara placing that very ad. So,
amazing.
$7 ad in a New York City newspaper, and you charge, I think, $10 an hour.
$10 an hour. I lived in horror that somebody would ask me what made me think I was worth $10 an hour.
Right? And fast forward 46 years later, we're still here. Here we are. So, but I want to just share real briefly a slide, because, a lot of times we're talking about paper coming in, and where does paper come from? Paper comes in the mail. Paper comes off your printer. People are giving you paper. Where is it coming from? And then there's email. People think, oh, I need help with my email. Email is the problem. And then there's text messengers. There's all these different things. And so this is an example of things coming to you, coming into your space. Phone calls. Hey, can you do this? Text messages, instant messengers, messenger apps, email, mail, printer, talking to somebody, and your own ideas. These all create digital and physical, what could be clutter, right? If it's not flowing anywhere. And so what we teach is that all of these things represent things for you to do, act on, or save for future reference, right? So they need a place to flow to. They're either going to be a task or a project, potentially an appointment, notes, quick notes, or long-term notes, contacts, physical files. So that's in your physical filing cabinet in your office or home, and digital files. So all of these things at the top flow down into some place. Otherwise, if they're not flowing into these 6 places, guess where they are? They are on your desk. They are on your kitchen counter. They are on your table, your kitchen table. They are on the floor behind you. I'm not looking into your office right now. I know you might be thinking that. They're not, they're on the floor behind you. They're on the credenza. They're near you because they don't have anywhere to go.
And it's the same thing with the email, your email
Yeah.
inbox. I mean, the inbox is the same as the mail that comes out of the mail. It doesn't have anywhere to go if you don't
That's
have a
right.
system for it.
That's exactly right. So again, today's mail is tomorrow's pile. The very first thing we do, if you look at these images in the very far right, you see the physical files and digital files. So physical files is your filing cabinet, digital files is your computer hard drive, and maybe some cloud drives and things like that. We don't start there. Like, we get there, and that's important, but we start with setting up the system so things have a way to flow. Otherwise, they are piling up, which brings us back to the definition of today's mail is tomorrow's pile. So I just wanted to share that. And Barbara, you said you had a story, a recent story that you wanted to share about this. Is this
Well, right now I have the blessing of being with Louise Wanier. So those of you who have seen my book, Less Clutter, More Life, that has the beautiful artwork in it, she's the artist that did those. And she said to me, I have a system for my physical mail. She said, most of my physical mail is not very important. All my bills are paid online, and sometimes she travels a lot. And she said, I have a big bin, and all the physical mail goes in the bin. And she said, I look at it every other week. And she said, it works perfectly. She said, if I'm traveling, it might even be longer than that, but there's nothing in it but it works perfectly because it's not cluttering up anything. If she's out of town and somebody's there and she needs something, somebody can do it and it stopped the problem. And that's such a great illustration of one of the things that we teach all the time. People say, what should I do? And we always say, that is the wrong question. The question is, what will you do? As long as you are breathing, you are going to have paper and digital information coming into your life. That's just the truth. I mean, that is here to stay. So it is so important that you get a system in place now so that it's automatic, that's just a habit, that it's easy to do. And it can be. And I'm a good illustration of that, in that I'm the one who files the papers in our house, and my husband's a paper person. He doesn't like technology. And we've been married 37 years, and he would give me a piece of paper and he would say, file this. And then later, a week or a decade later, he'd say, I gave you such and such. I said, oh yeah, I remember that. Well, now, and I'm not exaggerating, he will come and say, I gave you such and such, and I will have no recollection of it whatsoever. And I'll say, I don't remember it, but if you gave it to me, I can find it. I can go to our finding system in seconds, minutes at the most, find it. And even after I look at the paper, I still don't remember that I ever saw it. But the system and the habits have stopped the problem. And my children and grandchildren are going to be so happy about that, because when I leave this earth, they're not going to be left with a mess.
Amen. So you just said the system and the habits have stopped the problem. So guys, the system, you can implement the system. You can go through our boot camp. We teach you everything as if we were sitting next to you in your office, and you've got the system. That is not enough. That the putting the system in place is key. You absolutely need to do that, right? You want to put a system in place to handle all of these things. But then there is the maintenance piece that there is the habit creation to keep going, to keep bringing in. In fact, Barbara, I've got a question for you. I'd love for you to address.
Okay.
To keep, so when we have people go through our boot camp, we have two. One is the office transformation boot camp, and one is digital transformation boot camp. And in the office transformation boot camp, they're setting up their finding system so they can find anything they filed in seconds. And so they're everything you've taught for 40 years, they're learning in that boot camp. And they are very successfully setting up the system, and they're having fun, and it's great, and they feel good about it. But then what happens is if they leave the boot camp, which is very structured, we meet, we connect, we have time together, we implement together. And then when the boot camp is over, if they don't continue that connection and the meeting and at least setting up time on their own to do the work, which is definitely more difficult. That's why we offer options to continue working directly with us, to continue. Otherwise, it goes right back. I mean, you guys know it's the same thing with your dishes. How many of you guys know Fly Lady? The whole concept of emptying out your kitchen sink, which clears that space and gives you the mindset. But once you've done that, it doesn't stay that way. Your kitchen sink doesn't stay empty once you've cleaned it once, right? So the same thing with our files. And so, Barbara, one of the questions, I've said on the interwebs that I'm hearing in with our boot campers, one question was, one of our clients said, "Does it ever end?" As she was working on setting up her files, and I said, "Well, setting up the system will end. Yes, you will be successful at setting up the system, but as long as you're living, as long as you have a business or you have someone that you're taking care of or someone that information is necessary for, there is information coming in, and it is going to be an ongoing lifelong thing." Sorry, I don't mean to make you sad about that, but that's just life.
Well,
The
it's
good
repairing.
news
If you
is,
buy if you buy a car, I mean, you
yeah.
know, if you've got to do the maintenance. I think here's something I just thought about this in this way, Andrew, listening to you say it. First of all, I want to say that the solution to the paper and email clutter starts with mindset.
Mhm,
I think 80%
mhm,
of your success long term in this is believing that you can do it. And you can. I've never met anyone who couldn't do it if they chose to do it and they had the right system. So you got to start with mindset.
mhm,
But then there's three things after mindset. The one we've talked about already is setting up the system.
mhm,
Setting up the system is time consuming and kind of annoying, frankly. I mean, it just is. It's not the fun.
yep,
You're stuffing tabs and doing some things that are not fun. But I set up the files in my office when I moved into this house 28 years ago. I am using the same files with the same tabs for 28 years. So it's like, okay, I made an investment in it and it's lasted 28 years. I'm still using it today. The second thing then is the maintenance, which is habits. Because, yes, is it ever going to end? No, it's not. As long as you're breathing, you're going to have new mail coming in. But the next one, I think, is the one. And Andrea, you had mentioned that this was one of the things that was being talked about.
mhm,
What about the backlog?
yeah,
Everybody has the backlog. I have some backlog. I mean,
mhm,
I've been in business 46 years. I have a file cabinet up in my attic that's full of some client files from 35 years ago.
mhm,
So one of the things that we teach is what we call the cost factor, which is you can keep everything you want if you're willing to pay the price: time, space, money, and energy. So there was a time when I thought, I've got this file cabinet up in the attic and I was all these old clients, and I'm thinking, I know I probably don't need them, but I went up to do it and it was hard, frankly, because I love looking at them. Oh, I remember her and I remember this. And I was like, I really didn't. I just really, and then I thought, you know what? I don't really have to throw it away. It's not hurting anybody up here in this attic. And guess what? So I told my children, hey guys, I'm leaving this file up there, but when I drop dead, just go haul it off because you don't have to worry about it. The things that you need to worry about are in this file drawer with purple file folders. You need to worry about those, and the rest of them you can dump in the trash. So in
Oh,
my case, I made sure that it was. So the backlog. So the question becomes, everybody says, I don't have time to do the backlog. So you really do have to come up with a plan for that backlog. So my plan was I'm not doing anything with that backlog, but I told my kids that so they don't have to feel guilty about it, sort of thing. So maybe it's making, and there are so many ways that you could deal with the backlog. And so it's a matter, Ecclesiastes says there's a time for everything under heaven. And there is a time to clean up the backlog of the paper. I don't know what that time is because I would need to have more of a conversation with you. But I guarantee you that we could, using our 5-step productive environment process, we could come up with a plan for how and when you're going to do with the backlog. But if you don't deal with today's mail because you're worrying about the backlog, then you are going to sabotage yourself.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Thank you, Barbara, for sharing that. I've got two types of clients that I've been talking to recently that are in our boot camps and actually in our ongoing SOAR program, because which happens after the boot camp to help for so we can help you keep going, help you stay accountable and successful. So one, I've got some people that are very, very busy and they've set up the system, and the only thing they're able to do at this point is just maintain the new stuff coming in, and they are doing it. The new stuff is coming. Maybe it piles up for a couple days if they work or they're gone, they're traveling and they're busy. It piles up, but they have a system so they can recover. That's one of your things. Can you recover quickly? And so that's great. And I want to just celebrate that, the fact that that is happening. And if that's all you're able to do right now, that is amazing. Keep going. Keep going. There will come a time where you can look at your calendar and say, you know what? I have an extra 30 minutes a day or a week, an extra 30 minutes a week that I can address an old pile or something.
Okay. I
Okay.
do have a story for that one, and I don't know if you've heard this one or not. This is a long time ago. A woman got got her system in place, but she had a big backlog, and she literally was going to go on vacation to Hawaii.
Mhm.
And she called me the week before she left, and she said, I realized that when I come back from vacation, I am going to be looking at this same mess, which I have been looking at for decades, and I'm tired of it. And I've decided that I'm going to cancel my trip to Hawaii and clean
Mm.
up this old stuff. And she did. And then she ended up, instead of a whole week, she ended up with a long weekend. But at the end of it, she said, this is a permanent thing. I mean, this is something. She said the vacation, it's in the week, it's going to be over, and then I'm going to come back and face this same thing that I've looked at. And
Mhm.
so instead of taking a week long, we organized for 5 days, and then she took a long weekend and went away. So I thought that's the only time that anybody's ever told me that or had, but I saw it and I saw how it worked.
So you did our tagline. You did our tagline: accomplish your work and enjoy your life.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to share, because there's two types of people that I'm hearing from in our groups. One, the very, very busy. I'm too busy. I'm keeping up with the new stuff coming in enough that I'm surviving, but I'm too busy to address the backlog. The other side of the point, I guess, or the other group of people are, they're not too busy. They're maybe retired or whatever. They're not overwhelmed with busyness, but they feel guilty. There's the guilt, like, oh, I should be doing this and I should be doing that, and they're canceling. They're canceling time with friends. They're not enjoying their life at all because they should be working on their filing, right? They should be going through those boxes. But guess what's happening? They're not visiting with their friends, and they're not going through the files. They're not doing, because they're just, and so they're missing out on both. And so that's why I love the balance of our tagline is accomplish your work and enjoy your life. Do a little, go have some fun. Do a little, go live your life. There's a balance. there can be a balance. So anyway, but the main point of this particular talk, and I congratulate all of them that have done that, is stop the problem by putting the system in place so that you can manage the new things that are coming in, and then you can go back and address the old stuff later, and we can help you do that. So yeah.
Let me say one more thing about the backlog. I think, and especially with the people who are not, they're not raising children or whatever,
Yeah.
they are retired. I can remember so many clients I had who said, I mean, I literally knew them for like years, and they would say, okay, when I get retired, I'm going to do this. And then when they get retired, they'd say, I don't know how I ever had time to work, because partly they start playing pickleball and volunteering and doing all those kinds of things. And so you really do have to come up with your plan for organizing the backlog. And again, there's lots of different ways to go about it. But the key, and Together We're Better is up here, the key is accountability. So I think if you are faced with a backlog and you're procrastinating about it and you're not doing anything about it, if you probably won't do it by yourself. So how do you get support to do that? In fact, just recently I had an experience. I needed to go through my books. I had more books than I really needed, and I have a place that I could give them, and I was trying to go through them. And books for me are very emotionally difficult. And I literally called a friend and said, I want you to come and sit with me while I do this. I said, you don't have to do anything. I just need you to be there. And if, you can help me load boxes or take them out the car or whatever else. But mostly, I just want to whine.
I love it.
And so we literally sat here in my office on stools, and I kind of whined about the books or what they meant or whatever else. And I got it done. So I think, together we are better. We are not meant to do things alone. I'm such a believer that God created us to help each other. And people think it's weak to ask for help. It's not weak, it's wise. Asking for help is a sign of wisdom, not weakness. And even if you just find a neighbor, I mean, I've said this with closets. How many women go to your friend and say, I'll help you organize your closet, you help me organize mine? And it's so much easier to help somebody else than it is your own. So there's lots of ways to get it. But the biggest thing for the backlog is having a plan. And the plan may say, I'm waiting until my youngest child is in school, or I'm caregiving for my parents right now. I have to focus on the papers related to them. The rest of it, I'm going to wait until the situation is different than it is now.
Yeah. And be okay with that. Know that that's okay. You don't have to do it all at one time. Have a plan. But the most important thing is to stop the problem so it doesn't continue stressing you out on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to share a couple of things for you. If you're brand new to us, again, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. If you have never gotten or haven't gotten recently your productive environment score, let's see where you score on your productive environment. So you can go to productiveenvironmentscore.com. There will be a link in the comments to that. And also, we want to invite you to our webinar. So productiveenvironment.com/webinar. Now, we do alternate between talking about physical clutter and digital clutter, but it all goes together. It all flows together. So eventually,
the principles are the same, whether it's a document you're looking at on your screen or whether it's a document you're holding in your hand, the decision-making principles are the same. And that's what needs to happen. In the organizing industry, we get a lot of people who've hired professional organizers and it just didn't work. And the reason it didn't work was because they were not taught the decision-making skills. And once you know the decision-making skills, that will serve you for the rest of your life, and it will bless you and everyone around you.
That's right. So definitely go ahead, and depending on when you're listening to this, I don't know which webinar we're doing. It's either going to be the physical or the digital. Doesn't matter, as Barbara said, because most likely you have both. Most people, well, we all do. We all have paper and digital clutter. So we would like to invite you to join us on our webinar, get your score for your productive environment scorecard, and come back and check out some of our other podcasts that we've done. So thank you for joining us. That's it for today. And
Thank you.
I will go ahead. Let me see if there's any. Okay, I was just checking for any comments. So, all right, guys, thanks again, and we will see you next time.